United music is driving me nuts. Hello, 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 everyone. I'm here in Vegas and Shannon, Jersey.
I'm in Jersey.
Jersey. Do you ever do like the accent?
No, I don't. I don't. And I have a penchant for accents. I'm really good.
You're really good at the British
Really
accent.
good. Oh, I'm good at a lot of accents, but I'm not here to offend anyone, but I'm really good.
Is that a Canadian thing? Not to
No,
blanket,
no,
like,
I think you know what? I think I have a good ear. Not that I'm a good singer or anything, but I think it's all the music lessons. I have a good ear, and I just find accents fascinating.
mm,
It's just fascinating, linguistics and language and how people come about speaking
yeah.
the way that they do, and regionally, I just find it, even and this guy has like a beautiful New York City accent. Like it was like, it was just perfect, and it's one of my favorites. And it was just really, really good. Like woofs, and you got to make the call, and like it was just really, really good. So yeah, I love the accents. Love, love, love accents. So
Okay, friends. So just a caveat for everybody. There's this like global IT situation affecting United, and I'm due to fly out. And so I might have to like go mid YouTube live, but probably not because it's United. So just to like be transparent, but other than that, Shannon's here, I'm here. We're super excited to talk to you today about how to take up space. So, Shannon, do you want to like start us off?
yeah, well, I think we should talk about how this topic even came up, because you had some really good examples of witnessing how women take up space in certain rooms, certain areas, certain places, and then they kind of vanish from other areas where that's really when it makes sense for them to take up space. It could have a tremendous impact on their lives if they take up space in those areas. And so you gave an example, and I'm going to let you, really explain and express what happened in that particular situation. But it was just fascinating because you said the person was this woman was taking up so much space in the room. And I said, that's fascinating because she's not taking up any space in her life. Right. And then we were both like, oh, you know what I mean? And how often we see that where women are taking up space in certain areas, but not anything that would enable them to have a fuller life, a better life, a life that they really desire and want, what they're saying they want, but not taking up space in the areas that make the difference. Right. And that sounds kind of vague. So that's why I want you to give the examples so that people get what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think I'll give the example of myself. Um, yeah. So, when I was writing my first book, I was taking up a lot of space, but in the wrong spaces. So like anybody who would listen to me, I would like get my hands on them, like strangers, like friends, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, I am in so much fear. I cannot like write my book because like nobody's gonna buy it." I hadn't even like published it, right? Meanwhile, and to sort of piggyback on what Shannon is saying, right? Now there's another space to take up another way to take up space, which is in the personal growth like bubble, right? Of like, okay, so instead of spending all the energy and all the like to like, hey, anybody listen to me? I'm so afraid, I'm so afraid, I'm so afraid. I could turn my body towards, hey, what are some like just like tiny steps that I could take, right? Like research, how to publish on Amazon, like Google it, for example, or like, you know, put in my schedule, like, you know, in my calendar, like 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., you know, work on book, like write book or something, work on chapter one, which I eventually did that. But like, you know, so that's sort of like how Shannon and I came to talk about this. And I remember this example of myself also having looked at women in these different spaces and how there's so much, they're taking up so much space in those spaces, but then in their lives and their businesses, they weren't taking up a lot of space. That's what Shannon was saying. And then I'll put toss the ball back to Shannon, because then I was like, well, how does this show up in money? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think first of all, when you're taking up the space in those areas where you're not affecting any change, right? You're not doing anything that's going to better your situation. You're depleting yourself of so much energy because it takes a lot of energy to be negative, to complain, to not reach for solutions. That's really depleting, right? So even if you get to the area, the space, like on the other side of having written the book, like in your circumstance, right? Then do you have energy to promote it, to talk about it, to, move it forward, to share it, to,
Right.
what I mean? You're so depleted from this space that you barely give yourself an opportunity to shine in this space, right? And so when I think about the women that do that and how it shows up in money, well, when you're talking about, I don't have any money, I'm never going to retire, or I'm never going to get out of this hamster wheel situation, or I can't get a better job, or I can't make more money in my business. And you stay over here and you stay here without solutions, without finding ways in which you can change the situation. You cost yourself energy, but you cost yourself time, which in turn costs you money. So when you're taking up space saying, I hate my job, I can't get a better job, they don't pay me enough, whatever, all the things over here, and you're not negotiating for a better job, you're not looking for a better job, you're not negotiating for a higher paid salary, you're not negotiating when it comes time for a promotion, you're not asking for the promotion, you don't even think that you could apply for the better job because you're stuck over here. Well, you're costing yourself tens of thousands of dollars, which in turn could make a difference in your life, right? So when you stay in this place where you're taking up all the space, and using all the energy, you're not giving yourself that opportunity to grow over here. Because listen, like I said, it's gone. You're deflated. You're defeated. You don't have any energy left when it's all over here. And I see women stay in this position because they don't think they're good enough, because they don't think they're worth it, because they don't think they should be paid that much, because they think it's greedy asking for that much money, because they don't negotiate, because they're uncomfortable talking about money. All of these things, okay, prevent them from making that extra 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever it is, which in turn is money that if they invest it will grow and could totally change their lives, allowing them to take up space in a different way on this side of the fence. So that's how I see that, really making that transition from taking up space that doesn't serve you versus taking up space in areas where it serves you. Because if you take that energy over there and you place it over here, this whole way in which you look at life will be completely transformed.
And then it's interesting, right? Because then what occurred to me as you were talking is that it's a complete, like, it comes full circle. Because when you were like, not you, the proverbial you, when we like take up space, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. And then when you get to, I mean, what we're not saying here is that we're not saying don't vent. We're not saying don't complain. We're not saying, like fucking suck it up, like bro, startup culture, drink Red Bull. No, we're not saying that. But we're just saying to just zoom out a little bit. And if there's like a pattern of taking up space, like for example, with your girlfriends, and you're like, oh, I want to write this book, but I can't, and then and it's a pattern, right? To just zoom out and like see if you can, with this circle, right? You're here, and then just getting a little bit to neutral, right? So that's, what we always talk about: retreat, take yourself to a coffee shop, whatever retreating looks like. And then getting to like the other side of the circle of like, okay, so what are some tiny steps that I can do, or get a coach or whatever, get into these communities, get the support I need, right? And then, like what you're talking about, Shannon, like the money, right? You're actually, if you're asking for a raise or you're taking up space in that way, right? That's really going to like positively affect this over here, and that's going to stop, right? The taking up space, in the ways that don't serve you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always think we want to get to the place of solution-based whining, right? So
Mm.
if something's not working, you're gonna hear about it because I'm gonna complain about it. I'm gonna whine, I'm gonna complain. I do this thing, even my kids know about it. I go, that means that shit is hard and I don't like it, right? And that's how I
Yeah.
feel. And I will I will sit in that emotion until, and I always give it I give it a timeline, right? Like you can sit in that emotion for 24 hours. You can
Right.
sit there whining about it, bitching about it, complaining about it, telling everybody about how bad it is. I don't want solutions. I just want to vent. And
Right.
that's perfectly fine for me. And I got to get it out. Then I get sick of that, obviously, right?
Mhm.
And now the whining has to become solution based, right? The stuff is still difficult. The stuff is still hard to work through, but
Right.
I've got to start figuring out how I'm going to try to get out of this situation. And
Right.
I do this with my clients too. Like, listen, when folks come to me and they're either buried in debt or they're like, very sheepish and they're like, I don't know anything about investing. I may be brilliant. I may be really highly skilled in this particular area. I went to school for this particular thing and I'm really good at it. But I still don't, my money's not making money for me. I don't know what to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or they're caught in a situation. You're allowed to vent by all means. Work through that emotion,
Right.
right? But you don't want to stay there. You don't want to take up space there permanently.
Right.
And so that is the thing that we're saying. Yes, you got to take up space in the whiny spot. That's perfectly fine. But we don't want to set up residence there. We don't want to get our citizenship there. We don't want to, like when I got my green card and then I became an American citizen, you don't want to set up citizenship there. No, no. Okay. That's not what you want. You want to pass through, right? And once you pass through, now you're like, okay, how can I get a solution that will impact all of this whining to change my situation,
Right.
right? So now I get it. Not everybody's going to do that. A lot of people like it over there. They like where they are. They like setting up residence. They like living in that whiny place where nothing works for them. And great, great. Stay away from those people if you want something else, because that'll seep into your psyche. And I'll tell you, it's hard to interact with those folks, right? Especially if you're trying to do something different. So notice that there's some folks that like to be there. If you notice that you're the folk that likes to be there, bye. But if
Mhm.
you're not, move away from them. Move away from them. Find the folks who are like, okay, yes, this is difficult. Find the coach, find somewhere to go, find the group of friends, find the 5 people that you need to surround yourself with, which will be an indicator of where you're going, what you're doing, and how you are living your life. You are really, we all know this, you are the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So
Yeah.
if you look around and you're like, hey, everybody has residence over here in this place where we're taking up space, in this place where we're not going anywhere, we're not moving forward, however you define that, well, then go find the other 5 people, the other 4 people to make up your new cohort, because
Right.
that ain't it.
Totally. Yeah. No, I love that. It made me think of, like the residence, like don't take up residence or whatever. It made me think of like, and maybe because I'm going to be traveling here, but it made me think of like, when you transit, when you fly internationally,
Mm-hmm.
you go, you're not like landing, right, in that particular place, but you're like in transit in
Yeah,
between countries.
your connection, right? You're
Mhm.
connecting. You're not staying there.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's when you have the whining, right? Like, that's
mhm.
okay. You're there for a little bit.
Yeah. So be in transit,
Yes.
be in transit. And the thing about transit is that it's not that comfortable,
Mm.
right? You're jet lagged. You want to take a fucking shower,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't know, usually there's no good restaurants in the transit area, right? There's maybe nowhere to sit. Maybe your battery's dying for your cell
And you
phone.
can't relax there because you know you're not staying there. You
Yes.
can't relax. You cannot relax. You
Yeah.
know you're only there temporarily, so you can't really settle in.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like in limbo.
Yeah. But what you can do is because you're in transit, you're not here and you're not there. You can sort of be like, wait a second, right? It's actually, you can get, this is a sort of like a blank slate, like a a blank canvas, right? And it's kind of like, also maybe we're going too many metaphors here, but it's also kind of like, when you're on an airplane, right? That's not where you live. You don't live on the airplane. You're sort of in between countries for sure. But I love it because nobody knows me there, right? You're not bringing the 5 friends or whatever. You're just, well, usually I'm traveling alone,
Mm.
right? And even if you are with the friends, right, at some point, especially if it's international travel, they're going to listen to they're going to watch the movie, or, right, they're going to put the headphones on and you're going to just do your own thing, right? So I wanted to share that piece. And then the other thing that when you talked about it, I love that spin, right? It is true that you could be the one in your friend group that is taking up space that doesn't serve you. That could be true. And it could also be true that maybe all of your friends are doing that. And you're the one, listen, we evolve. If you're watching this, you want to evolve. If you're watching Shannon and I, you want to evolve. Maybe you don't know how yet, and that's okay. Um, So the other piece about, spending time with the friend group, that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. Absolutely. There's so many studies done on this, but also that's affecting not just your thoughts, but how you eat.
Mm.
And that we have to be very careful about. We get to be very careful about,
Mm.
right? Because that's going to affect a lot of other things in your body,
Mm.
right? So yeah, I just wanted to like bring that in, because I love food and talking about food. The update on
Yeah.
United is that there's no update in case.
They're so rude.
Totally. Anyways,
And listen, I'm a United traveler. I got nothing for you. I got
Mhm.
nothing for you. This is the point where you see now I can take up space. You're being really pessimistic, but I have the data. So I don't know, right?
I know we
Which
all
is a
have
good
the
point
data.
though, right? We all have the data, right? So somebody who's in that space and they're taking up space, they feel like they have the data and they do. I haven't done this. I've never done this. I can't do this. Da, da, da. They are calling and drawing from that data of their own experiences, right? So
Right.
it's not like they feel that this is unfounded, right? But I think most people who are listening to this, people who like, share, and subscribe to our channel, people who are like, I want something different. They're not the folks who are just going to sit here drawing on that data and using that data as a reason for no longer moving forward, right? I
Right.
think they're going to see that data for what it is, what it was, but still, and in spite of, not but, in spite of that data, do something else. And I think that you really need a community when you're trying to do something different, when you're trying to move from taking up space over there and depleting yourself of energy to taking up space where you want something different for yourself. You need community. You need a coach to kind of hold up that mirror and show you this is what you're doing. This is what you're saying. Is that really what you want? You need to get in a different environment. And
Right.
I know everybody likes to be like, oh, people are jet setting all over the world. Listen, a different environment could be a coffee shop. Don't make it more than like, don't make it so complicated. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be a change. Sometimes it's on your porch or your deck or in your backyard or at the local park. Like that is a change of environment, and that in and of itself can enable you to just get a different perspective,
Right.
right? So I don't know why folks feel like everything needs to be done on their own, right? Or by
Yeah.
themselves. I mean, you have like I think I read somewhere like a 68% greater probability of achieving your goals if you have accountability, meaning you have the support, you have
Right.
somebody there where you feel safe. I mean, where you can gain information and knowledge from their wisdom, even, right? Um, and a lot of people don't have access to that. And I think it's important for them to find that. Some things that I know you and I even have taken for granted over the years that I've realized that a lot of folks don't have is sometimes having parents who have sense, common sense, okay, is something that you take for granted.
Yeah.
When you have someone who could parent you in a loving way, that is a privilege. Unfortunately, it's considered a privilege, but it is a privilege. And
Right.
it's something that you even take for granted, right? So not everybody has or had access to that. And even if they had parents, they weren't parented in a way that was supportive or loving or encouraging or what have you. And so finding that person even who can act as that mentor, act as that coach, can be in that community where you can learn and learn some of those skills, get some of that support that will enable you to take up space in a way that serves you versus depletes you.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, because those are like my folks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They don't have family
yeah.
who've either started businesses or they can talk about money with or business
Mm-hmm.
with,
Mm-hmm.
or they weren't parented in a way that was supportive. Um, and when you were talking about people that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with, right? What if that is your family of origin,
Right.
right? So anyway, all of this to say, um, the other thing that came up as you were sharing about get yourself into the proper community, right? This is, and take up space in that community, right? Right. Because you're going to be supported, right? And loved,
Right,
cared
right.
for, right? The other piece to that, and this is something that I'm growing into, like as we speak, is if that community doesn't exist for you yet, create it yourself.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and listen, I'm not saying, hey, fucking do it tomorrow. We're not talking about, like, but if, if there's a community that you're eyeing, that works for you, great. And if there isn't, um, please, please think about creating it yourself, because
Yeah.
we need more diversity, right? I mean, look at me and Shannon. And listen, Shannon and I are sometimes a community of two,
Hmm.
and that's okay too, right? You get to define what that looks like for you, what your community, how many people are in there. Maybe you start with two and maybe it grows to like 50, who knows, right? But there have been a lot of times where Shannon and I have been the only women of color in the room, in a lot of these rooms. And we would not be able to have those conversations with people who didn't look like us that we have with each other. And that love and that support and the kindness. And also like, hey, start taking up space in over here instead of over here. Right. And Shannon's humor, have been really instrumental for me personally. Right. So whatever it is that you can do, right? We're just taking these tiny steps, and we're just even bringing awareness to what might be going on for you in terms of taking up space, because we're socially conditioned as women to not take up any space.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I was thinking, just going back, and then I want to touch on something that you just said,
Mm.
going back to, I mentioned that sometimes folks, and like you said, your folks don't necessarily have the family or the support systems. They didn't grow up with parents who parented them in a way that encouraged them, to be their whole selves, right? And I think that even when you do, right, have that support system in those parents, the things that I was thinking about, my parents couldn't even fathom. And were like, are
Mhm.
you, nuts? Like, I was like, there's no way I am working till 65. Like, you bought into that. You bought into that. Good for you. But there was no way that I was going to do that. There was no way that I was just going to get comfortable financially and continue working for like God knows how many years for whatever company. There was no way that I wasn't going to create multiple millions for myself, and there was no way that I wasn't going to learn about the stock market.
Right.
Those things, my parents were like, say what now? Like, they were like, oh, you get a good job and you do these things and whatever. But to think that I would retire long before 50, that they what like that didn't make sense to them. And so you have to find areas, people, communities where they get it. They get what you want, or like Kyla said, you create your own and you find those like-minded people. I had somebody come up to me, actually, a physician, say to me, well, where do you find people like this, right? And I thought, so fascinating, because I'm thinking in my head, you are people like this, right? Like, aren't you people like this, right?
Mhm.
And it's incredible because I told you about that high net worth group that I joined, and I'm always so fascinated by it because, as wonderful as it is,
Mhm.
It is indicative of what you said. There aren't a lot of women, period. And of the women that are there, there aren't a lot of women of color. And of the women of color, there are even fewer Black women, right? Like, so it just, that funnel, it just gets smaller and smaller. But what's fascinating for me about this group is, although it's fantastic, the barrier to entry is so high. Okay. It's so high that I feel like it's such a disservice to other women who, should join, want to join, could achieve, this financial success if they join, but we'll get into that later. But what's so fascinating to me is the people who started this community because they didn't have anybody to talk about this stuff to, right? They were first gen millionaires and they didn't have anyone to talk about it, not their families, not their friends. So just like what you're saying, if you can't find these people, you can start the community. However, I feel very strongly that we have a community here, you and I, Kyla, with our folks, your folks, my folks, the folks that we've worked with together. We have a community here that is quite strong. It is quite nourishing. And people learn a lot and they stick around for a reason, right? So I think it's really important that, yeah, if you don't have that community, find one to join or start your own. And it really makes a difference. I learned a lot from all of the communities I'm in. I learned a lot from sharing with you. I learned a lot talking to you. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what she's saying is so true that it hurts, and now I gotta do it. You know what I mean? But there's stuff that's uncomfortable that we're trying and learning, but that's the beauty. Like, if you're not growing in any capacity, right? And I'm not just talking about your bank accounts or, you know what I mean, your wealth or but if you're not focusing on your health, if you're not looking at how you're nourishing your body, if you're not looking at how you're taking care of yourself, if you're not looking at what's important to you, and yeah, I weave wealth into that because when you have money, you take that struggle off the table and it makes it easier to focus on these things that we're talking about. Okay.
Right.
Hands down. Everybody in that high net worth group, they talk about health like nobody's business.
Mm,
Why? Because the money's off the table for them. That's not a concern. That's not causing them any of their stress. What they put their money towards is traveling, food, time conveniences, and their health. Big money is spent on their health, right?
right.
So I think it's so important that if you're not growing in those areas that can improve your life, then you're over here in that area where we talked about, and you continue to deplete yourself of many, many things, but
Right.
your energy, if nothing else. So join the community, form the community, find the community, but support yourself and give yourself that time. Like, take up space trying to figure out what's important to you. I mean, it's so rewarding. It really, really is.
So good. Shall we wrap it up?
I think we should wrap it up. So before we do,
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
we need you to like, comment, and subscribe. Click those buttons down there. If you have a comment, definitely let us know if there's something that you want us to talk about. If you want us to hit on something, or if there's something in here that resonated with you that you want us to elaborate on, or you just want to comment, we want to hear from you guys. It's really important. We talk about community. You guys are part of the community. So we want to hear what you have to say. It's a give and take. Let's talk about what's going on with you. What are you working on right now? Where can people find you to work with you? Of course, they can find you here, but where else can people find you to work with you and spend time with you?
Yeah. So I've got 2 retreats coming up. One is a business intensive constellations retreat. That's in October 15th through 17th in Oakland, the Bay Area. And then I have, and this is the first one. This is the first one that I think is like ever, and anyone has done this looking like me. But it's the first all Asian family constellations for women, all Asian women, family constellations intensive retreat. So that's going to be November 2nd to 5th in Danville, California, which is a very white suburb, but that's okay. Also in the Bay Area. So we're sold out of the business constellations intensive retreat on-site spots, but we still have commuter spots available. And our applications are open for the all Asian women one. So please let me know if you're interested. We'd love to have you. And what have you got going on, Miss
Really,
Shannon?
really cool. Really, really cool. So yesterday I did a webinar, 40 is the new 65, say goodbye to your 9 to 5. Totally amazing. Unfortunately, not everybody could get in, which is a good thing. I know people aren't interested in this topic. People want to buy back their time, their freedom. You know what I mean? And I think it's really easy for people to see how this can work for them. And so I'm conducting the webinar again next Thursday, July 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Definitely you can click the link. I'll put it in the show notes here and you can register. It was really, really good. I think a lot of people were like, oh, wait a minute, this is possible for me. And that's really what I want people to get. Like, yes, my clients get it because we're doing it, and a lot of them have accomplished this. But for folks who come to work with me or just come to the free webinar and they're like, wait, this is actually possible. And I'm like, yes, it's possible. Damn it. There's no reason for you to have to work until you're 65. I don't care if you love your job. I want you to love your job. That's great. The folks that do love their job, that's amazing. But I don't want you to have to do it. I want you to want to do it and not have to worry about it. And so when you have that opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm going to work, 8 months out of the year and 4 months I travel and da da da, and you're not just working because God, you don't have enough money, it totally changes the trajectory of your life. And so that's what I want to introduce folks to. And I want them to get rid of this notion that at 65, you can suddenly walk away from work, because there's nothing magical about 65. If you're 65 and broke, you ain't going nowhere. So get 65 out of your brain and replace it with the dollar amount. And I'm going to talk about how you can figure out what that amount is so that you can live a good life.
I love that.
I
So
mean,
good.
come on. It's true. If you're 65 and broke, you can be a Walmart greeter because that's not going to help you, right? 65 doesn't mean suddenly the average Social Security check is $1,900. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. So something to think about. So I would love it if everybody could register. The link will be below this Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. It's free. It's there to give you a different perspective on how you can live your life moving forward.
Yay. All right. Thank you.